What will I not get if I truly renounce? Now, this is the key that all of us must understand. The moment you understand that, your life changes. You see, this is the law. You chase after a desire, desire runs away from you. Turn your back on it. Even pretend, even within yourself, say, I just don't want it. It comes to you. So this is it. When you relinquish all desires, the entire universe comes to you.
Namaste and welcome to our show on the Bhagavad Gita with Srimati Jaya Rao. I am your host Ajay and also Jayaji's son. So Jayaji, one of the comments that we got, the feedback that we got is that the interviewer should be a little more informal and casual. So that's why I've decided to change uh, my clothes today.
Attire.
Yeah, and I'm also wearing shorts just in case you need to know. So that's I wanted to get into the character. One of the things that happened last week, and I was with a colleague of mine, and we were outside at one of our training venues. We were trying to open a package that was like tightly bound, with rope, and we were outside the office, so we were kind of struggling with it. It was like, how do we open this? And then suddenly, a guy walked by, and he was one of the laborers who works at the like a wedding mandap, like the setting up the wedding venue. And he just came up and offered a blade for us to, open the package. Job done in a minute, and he walked away. That was it. Sometimes I feel like what was in it for him? He had nothing to gain from this thing, and but then it just made me think like if someone with nothing can display this kind of kindness and empathy, then why is it that people from our strata of society, sometimes I feel, I mean, it appears that way, I could be wrong, but sometimes, not every time, but sometimes I feel like people with the most, blessed with the most, pockets bulging, stomachs bulging, are still not able to find a way to reach out to people.
See, you're right. People who are less educated, who are not exposed to formal education and the things that go with being privileged, they are more basic. So they are brought up, and I think it is a natural instinct in humans to reach out to people, which is crushed in, unfortunately, in this formal upbringing. Because let's say when you send a child to school, when you yourself as parents are trying to build your careers and futures and things like that, the focus is only on self. Very rarely do we speak about reaching out to people. Very rarely do we live it. So this is culture. This is comes from upbringing, which is being unselfish. So this is in our culture. We are told that never mind getting to God. God is an unknown entity. We don't know where or how he is. But if you're able to reach out to human beings, then you're in a way connecting with God. So these are small acts, like allowing an elderly person to enter the lift and you take the second round. Helping a person cross the road, a child maybe, anyone. Or while you're driving, stopping and waiting for somebody to cross the road. This never happens in our society, or very rarely. But some people have it in them. And if you trace it back, it is usually a spiritual connect.
How?
Through parents, grandparents.
No, but I'm saying I understand that part, but how is spirituality linked to this
Because bhakti is the predominant thing, right? Knowledge is, like Vedantic knowledge is not pervasive, but bhakti is more pervasive. prayer, temple going, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And in and through that comes across this thing of love, affection, reaching out to people, kindness, forgiveness. These are qualities that are encouraged, more easily encouraged than Vedantic truths. So, this is how you cultivate. But in this rush of selfishness, it's taken a backseat. So, we need to bring that up and bring it up as a gracious act, as a mark of a civilized person, instead of just pushing and getting your way through. And some of this pushy attitude has come because of the sheer population.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like in Western countries, you don't need to make a conscious effort. It's there for everyone.
It's almost by default.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
here, because of the sheer pressure of numbers, like either I get into a train or I allow somebody else to get into
Or
the
I
train.
miss it.
I miss it.
Yeah.
So it never happens that both of us get in. And the sheer pressure of getting from home to your workplace is so stressful that people don't have the time or the inclination to think of others. So that has what has led to this.
Yeah.
But we need to make a conscious, at least among people like us, privileged classes, who don't necessarily go through this trauma of pushy, of being in a closed environment. We can make that effort. Unfortunately, we are also not making that effort.
Yeah, but this is something that's irrespective of the circumstances, right? I
True.
agree with you that yes, if sometimes if you have to travel by public transport in rush hour, it can be like that. But I'm saying overall, it's a mental approach, and it's
Absolutely.
not a function of
Circumstance.
as we saw with my experience that I spoke about just now. It's not a function of how much you have or don't have. It's not a function of uh, the literacy or your degree or lack of it, educational degree or lack of it. It's got nothing to do with that.
No, it's a mindset.
No, and also at some level, it's our ability to identify with, to find some sort of commonality with people with others, right?
You said it. See, the root is the ability to identify with others, to feel a connect.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be. We have to find it. Sometimes it may not come automatically.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what's the insecurity, ego. Why is it? Let's take a step back. Why is it that we are selfish? Can you help us understand that? Because what is it that drives selfish behavior?
See, what drives selfishness is desire.
Yeah.
So the lower you are in the spiritual ladder, the more desires you have,
Yeah.
the more insecure you feel, the more deprived you feel, even if you have more. It has nothing to do with what you have.
Yeah.
So this sense of deprivation drives us to acquire more. And then in that, with the force of this acquisitiveness, you have neither the time nor the inclination to look at others.
Exactly.
So it is something that needs to be ingrained in us. So if the environment doesn't have it, then we need to think and see the pleasure that you get of giving up your seat for someone else, for instance, or just on a flight. Let's say a mother and a child have different seats, and you happen to be next to the mother. You say, okay, I'll give up my seat for the child to be with the mother. Just simple things like this.
Yeah.
Which we don't have. And that's because of this feeling of deprivation. So you feel I need things from the world wherever I have the time to look at others.
So then, how do we deal with this insecurity or this sense of deprivation? So sorry, I feel like I'm just digging deeper and deeper and deeper, but I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it at some level.
By understanding the abundance that we already have. So you see, what happens is the mind has this uncanny knack of looking at one or two things that you don't have.
Yeah.
And by that, you are making all that you have irrelevant because you're not even enjoying it. You're not aware of it. You're not enjoying it.
Yeah.
You don't wake up saying, I'm so blessed. You wake up saying, I don't have this. So
Sometimes.
it is an education that either comes from yourself or it has to come from others. And in ancient India, children were exposed to these values. So that's how we have this culture where an uneducated person is able to reach out. You know, once I was at home, we had a carpenter working. And after he completed his work, I gave him what I thought I had to give him. And he said, there's a mistake. So I was in a hurry and I got impatient with him. I said, no, I've calculated. I thought he was asking for more.
Yeah.
And after all that, in the end, he says, but you had given me an advance. You know, this is culture. This is honesty.
Yeah.
And I was so touched by what he said. And it was a significant amount, not a small amount. And something made me say, I think it was owed to you. You deserve it. So I'm going to give you that in any case.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. Many of us would have said, oh, "Theek hai, he's forgotten. I mean, she's forgotten. It's okay. I don't know it to her."
No, and also like another thing, another allied thought, okay? And I feel like sometimes those of us in the, I would say, spiritual circles, if you can call it that, is that sometimes we start to judge others like too soon, too often, or like you'll say, oh, he's not smart, or she doesn't have that depth in her. But um, you know, why do we make such quick judgments on people when we don't even know them well enough, right? It's like that story of the six blind men and the elephant. And one of the blind men touches the tail of the elephant and says the elephant is like a snake. And we do that all the time, repeatedly, despite being proven wrong again and again and again, right? So how do we prevent ourselves from being judgmental? And I think like this is some a self criticism of myself also. Like there are times when uh I don't know, maybe is it to save time or to avoid getting hurt, or sometimes you make that call and then you stick with that, and then the person is so much more than that, right? So how do we avoid this trap?
Yeah, well, there are several ways of doing it. One is to understand that even if the person has the fault, see, first is like you said, you must understand that I don't know the totality. I'm only judging based on one symptom. The person may be different.
And on such little evidence.
Yes. Second is to go back and think, suppose that person had been someone I love and the person genuinely has the fault, like my daughter or son or whatever, I wouldn't be so judgmental. I would be more understanding and more considerate and more, more accepting.
Yeah.
So there are two things here. One is intellectually, I must understand I don't have the facts. And therefore, I am not in a position to make a judgment. And secondly, feeling. So either of the two, if you have, you escape that. Third, most important, when you look inward and you understand how difficult it is to overcome one fault, one defect, then you hesitate to pass judgment on others. Because you say, here is a person who may not even know that he has the fault and is not making an effort. So how do you expect him to overcome it? No?
Yeah.
So that judgmental attitude is replaced by an understanding and a confidence that someday he'll overcome it.
Yeah. And it's also, I feel like it's also being able to give another person the benefit of the doubt, right? You don't know what he or she is going through in their personal lives or work life or whatever it is. So many things can be playing on our mind, and then I may react to something in a certain circumstance at a certain point of time, and then you think like, oh, this guy is an angry guy,
Yes.
or this guy is he's indifferent. You know, we do this all the time.
Yeah, there's a true story. of a teacher in America, in a school where all the, inner city people come, and children with problems, very severe problems. So this teacher has a feeling for them and how she turns them around. Whereas the principal and other teachers are being judgmental. So you see the difference when you understand what they're going through and say that if I were in her place, I don't know what I would have done. No?
No, empathy, right?
Yes.
That's what, if there's two things that the world needs right now, and I would say always, is kindness and empathy. Like, give the other person a chance. I'm not saying be a fool or be a doormat, right? How so? Okay, so one is that we want to be kind and empathetic, but also we should avoid getting hurt or getting taken advantage of. No.
That will never happen if you genuinely are kind, because it stems from a feeling of love and
Yeah.
affection. But also you have the intellect to make sure that your actions are not determined merely by emotion, but by judgment. Meaning, if you truly love a person, you won't just act on emotion. You will do what is good for the person, which means using the intellect.
Like a parent does for a child.
Yes. So you will never get taken for a ride. And that fear should go from us. Most of us are afraid
Yeah.
to reach out to people just because we feel we'll be taken for a ride. How will you be? If you've got your head on your shoulders, nobody can take you for a ride.
Yeah, and even that fear is a function of selfishness, isn't it?
Yes.
Any fear, the fear of losing is a
Absolutely.
it stems from selfishness, which stems from insecurity, which stems from an ignorance of our fullness, right?
True. So when you truly love a person and you give, you're not afraid that maybe my child will take advantage of me because you're giving. So there's nothing that the child can take which you don't already give.
Yeah. You never lose.
Yes.
I mean, in your mind, even though you may lose financially sometimes or emotionally sometimes you get it, but actually, when you look at it in totality, you never feel like you're losing.
Yeah.
So, I think with that done, shall we begin?
Sure.
Continue with our study. I think we're close to, we're going to wrap up chapter 2 today. So I think we can start with the last few verses. Yeah, we'll start with the invocation.
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
So we're now on the last 3 verses of chapter 2. And Lord Krishna says in verse 70, he says, as the ocean, which filled from all sides with waters entering it, remains still, so one in whom all objects of desire enter obtains peace, not the desirer of desires. So can you break this verse down for us?
Yes, this verse is actually lifted almost physically from the Mundaka Upanishad.
Okay.
And it sounds very innocuous, but what he's actually conveying is the formula for happiness. It's a mathematical equation. Happiness equals number of desires fulfilled divided by the number of desires you entertain. Okay? So now, if you look at us, all over the world, 8 billion of us, where is our attention?
On the numerator.
On the numerator.
Yeah.
So we're going crazy all over the world trying to fulfill desires.
Yeah.
But nobody is happy. And they are not doing any thinking about asking themselves. No one is asking, why is it that in spite of fulfilling so many desires, I'm still not happy?
Yeah.
The answer is in this formula. Answer is, if your denominator is high,
Yeah.
however much you increase the numerator,
It won't matter.
it doesn't matter, it just cancels.
Yeah.
So what the numerator is actually irrelevant. It doesn't matter. If you shift your focus to the denominator, even mathematically for now,
Yeah.
as
The
you
numerator doesn't matter.
exactly, your happiness increases in leaps and bounds,
Yep.
and when you bring that denominator down to zero, you hit infinity.
Yep.
That is what he's saying in simple language.
Hmm.
Ocean is like the infinite.
Hmm.
And rivers of different types, a small rivulet, a big river, mighty Ganga or Mississippi, with different chemical formulations, different content, enters the ocean and it all becomes one. And if you think about it, these millions of liters of water,
So, what are these rivers that we're talking about?
individuals.
Okay.
So once we understand the river, then we'll understand.
Okay.
So different types of rivers enter the ocean and they become just one mass of water.
Hmm.
Similarly, there are different types of human beings. There is a brilliant Einstein, there is an ordinary villager, there are brilliant people, there are handicapped people, all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Once you get into that ocean, then there is infinity. Thereafter, anything added or subtracted makes no difference. So, all that we need to understand is this, that the numerator is irrelevant. We need to focus on the denominator. Now, how can we reduce desires? You can't wish them away. You can only pick up a higher desire. Now, let's say a young boy who is very passionate about cricket, wants to join the under 19 team. Once that desire gets into him, you see what happens automatically. He switches off from hanging
Social
out with
media,
friends, from social media, from all of this, from eating the food he likes, and he's totally focused there.
Yeah.
So that is what happens. Once you fix a higher ideal, a bigger desire, then you automatically become free from the lower. And then you understand desire, when you get to the root of it, you just mentioned it. When do you have a desire for food?
When you're hungry.
Correct. When your stomach is empty.
Correct.
Similarly, when does a desire pop up in the mind? When you feel a sense of
Emptiness.
void,
Yeah.
emptiness. And this emptiness haunts us
Yeah.
from birth to death, from morning to night. It never goes, it never reduces. Because they say, the masters tell us, that if the emptiness was real, it could be filled. But this is an imaginary emptiness. So there's this story of a state in which there was a terrible flood and everyone perished in it, except for the 3-month-old infant prince, the heir to the throne. The nanny, the person who looked after him, intelligently put him in a basket which floated and went away. And she also died, but before she died, she told everyone, the heir is alive, find him. So they went on a statewide search after the waters went, but they couldn't find him. Same state, there was a beggar begging on the streets for 20 years, main street. At age 20, the royal guards came, picked him up, took him, did a DNA test, discovered he's the prince. So he said, they were so excited. They first gave him a bath because he was dirty, put royal clothes on him, put him on the throne, placed the crown on him and said, Your Majesty, you're our king. He didn't understand any of it. He said, what does it mean? He said, whatever you want, you ask, it'll be done. So his first desire, first order was, make way. So they made way. He bolted. He wanted to go back to the road where he was begging, because this was all unfamiliar. But anyway, they put him back and he became a great king. On the first anniversary of his coronation, they had planned a great celebration. But he took his old dirty beggar clothes, put them on, went back to the same street. Now, his experience was different. The other people treated him the same way. But what is the difference? 1 year back, who was he?
The beggar.
Was he? He was still the king. But he did not know he was king. And that made all the difference. Now he knows he's king. So whether people give him anything or not, it just amuses him. It doesn't make any difference. 1 year back, he went through the trauma. So similarly, if we understand that I'm actually full, I don't need anything, and then go out and fulfill desires. Because until you get to knowledge of your fullness, you're still going to have desires. Fulfill your desires, but at the back of your mind, you must carry the thought that I really don't need it. Then you're supreme. You're not dependent. You're not a beggar. Today, we are going out into the world begging for objects of the world, for worse is emotions. Please love me. That is a horrible dependence. Dependence is the thing. So, if you understand a little bit of the Gita, you shift the suzerainty, the control from the world to yourself. And then you feel good.
Then you're not affected, right?
Exactly.
By the vicissitudes of the world, in a sense.
So this is the beauty of this, this is talking about a high state where a person is free from desire. But he's brought it down to our level. So we can actually apply it.
So that's verse 70. And then in verse 71, Lord Krishna says, that person attains peace who, relinquishing all desires, lives without longing, mindness, or egoism.
So, when you read it, you can't connect with it. Because relinquishing all desire, we just can't understand it. So you have to go back to an experience where you actually feel it. Like an actor on stage.
Yeah.
Let's say, 40-year-old actor is playing the role of someone who's a jilted lover who's contemplating suicide, and so he's down in the dumps, the actor. But it's his 40th birthday, the actor's 40th birthday. And they're having a party after that. So now imagine, the poverty of the role has no impact on the actor. He has no desire for the role, for the happenings of the role. There is no longing, there is no mindness there, and there is no ego. Because he's at another level altogether. Similarly, we are heir to that higher level. And we have nothing to do with this. And if you just tell yourself that I am who I am. Now, you don't know who you are, but at least tell yourself, I am who I am, and none of this matters. Then again, you become independent. You become at peace. Relinquishing all desire, you tell yourself whether it happens or not, what difference does it make? This we never tell ourselves. So when you're consumed by a desire, like I want to buy a new car.
You get obsessed with it.
Correct. Yeah. Now, it doesn't occur to you that before you entertain that desire, you were quite happy with the present car.
Yeah.
So why can't you be happy? And then get the car, fine. Aspire for more, get it, get a luxury car.
But without dependence.
Without that longing, that craving is what destroys us.
Yeah. So he talks about mindness and egoism, right? So how do we deal with these two flaws that we have in our lives, which is one, I would say in a more colloquial sense, is this sense of possessiveness, right? My partner or my car or my house or my family, or whatever it is, right? I mean, we're possessive about so many things. And then the second thing is the ego, this sense of,
That's
do
a
you
killer.
know who I am kind of thing. I mean, we say that in a more colloquial sense, but how do we deal with these two, negative qualities that are in all of us?
Yeah, see, mindness, you need to analyze and see what is it in that is mine. You say my child, but the child is a person by herself or himself. He doesn't belong to me. And how does it give, who gives me the authority to say my son? So even in my mind, even in our minds, we should not say that my should not come. I was telling someone the other day, if you say that possessive pronoun my, then it limits your whole world. So he was saying, oh, I live in Delhi and we have a garden. And you don't have a garden. In Mumbai, nobody has a garden. I said, no, we have. We have a 7-acre garden. We live opposite the Oval Maidan, right? Now, what prevents us from enjoying that Oval Maidan as much as he enjoys his garden? Just the minus. And if you don't have that minus, you can enjoy the whole world. In fact, the whole world becomes mine. You can enjoy the Oval Maidan. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to maintain it. You don't have to worry about it. And it's yours. You can go there whenever you want. You can use it. That kind of thing. So when you have this mindness, you limit your world to just what you possess. Whereas what prevents you from possessing the whole universe?
Yeah.
So what we must do is make an effort wherever you feel that sense of possessiveness to question, what is it about it that's mine? Except my delusion. And once you're free from it, you're free from stress. Same thing with ego. Ego is like a bubble on the surface of the ocean. So what is the bubble? The same water, the same air, except in a different configuration. That gives you the false sense that it is me, I am separate from totality. And then comes your stress. You have to be bigger, you have to compete with others, you have to swallow up other bubbles.
Yeah.
And eventually what happens? The bubble bursts. So through this process, even while we are bubbles, we are individuals. If you identify with a larger entity, not necessarily God, if you can't relate to God, a larger entity, my team, my larger family, my company, whatever, my nation, then you don't go through the trauma that the bubble goes through. So you're not competing with anybody, you're happy when others prosper, and you, like you said, your kindness, and all of that comes automatically. So ego manifests as I alone am, when you think no one else exists except me. I am supreme and I am the doer. So all three you must negate through understanding. That's the intellectual way. The devotional way is just feel one with more people.
Yeah.
Then your ego goes.
No, and also when you examine it, nothing is really ours, right? We're just temporary custodians of whatever it is that we are blessed with at some level.
Exactly.
Even let's say I'm a great musician. The talent for music is not something I can claim. I was born with it. I'm just saying, Messi is a great footballer, right? Where did that talent come from, right? At some level, at some point, there are no answers to that question.
And even if he has put in the hard work, which he has,
Of course.
his health is not his.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yes. Yeah, so I think those thoughts, when we realize that there is something beyond us that is operating, I think it gives you a sense of humility, um, a sense of grounding, which I think is really important, right?
Very much.
And then possessiveness and ego, you're able to kind of tackle it.
See, which is why in the past in India, every king had an in-house sage who would be consulted on important decisions and who would help keep the king under control. Control in the sense grounded, as you say. Because you see, as you make a lot of money, you gain power, that it's a heady wine.
No, and then people stop telling you the truth. Right? They start telling you what you want to hear. And at some level, the court jester who was excused, who could say, was given license to say anything in the old days, was the guy who showed the mirror to the ruler, right?
Yes.
He did it in an entertaining way, let's say. But at the end of the day, if you got the message, you got the message, right?
Yes, like Shakespeare, in all of Shakespeare's plays, the court jester says the most profound things. But you've got to have the ability to take it.
No, and that someone to show you the mirror in life is so important, because otherwise you can just live in your own delusion. And the wealth gives you the ability to live in that delusion. See, if you're living hand to mouth, then there's no question.
Wealth
You
or
are,
power.
yeah, wealth and power, both. So it's even more important as you get economically more prosperous or more powerful, that you invest in spiritual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we move to the last verse of chapter 2. It's verse 72, right? And Lord Krishna says, O Partha, this is the nature of Brahman. Having attained this, nobody is deluded. Remaining in it, one attains nirvana, union with Brahman, even after death.
This verse, again, if you take it at face value, it means nothing to us because we haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
So you have to look at a situation. Like, let's say, when Joe Biden, when he was president of the US, came to India for the G20 conference and all that. Let's say when he came, now this is not true, but I'm just projecting it. Suppose he were to suddenly say, but India is a spiritual country and I want to meet a man of renunciation. So the Prime Minister's office goes into a tizzy. Where do you get men of renunciation anymore? But there was a young officer in his office who told the others, don't worry. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you bring the president. I will introduce him to a man of renunciation. So they say, are you sure? You're dealing with the president of the United States. He said, I'm 100% sure. So they left him. Now this guy went out and he saw a youngster hanging around. So he called him and said, are you jobless? He said, yes. Do you need a job? He says, yes, so desperately. He said, okay, tomorrow I'm giving you a job for 10 minutes and I will give you 10 lakhs for it in hard cash. So he says he's game.
$1 million, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, to someone who doesn't know what a lakh is, yeah.
So ₹1,000,000 I'll give
Yeah.
you. So what do I have to do? Say tomorrow morning at 10. You see that tree there? He says, yes. You have to sit under the tree. And people will come and offer you things. You have to say thank you, but no thank you. What you will be offered may be more than 1,000,000. But you have to say no because you'll neither get that nor the million. So he says, I understand, sir. Next day, he was sitting there. Joe Biden came. Americans do all their homework. So he got a silver thali, fruit, this, that, and the other. He offered it. So, thank you, sir, but no thank you. And every time he said no thank you, the offer was increased.
Yeah.
So he said, you live here? Let me get you a house. He said, no thank you, I'm very happy under this tree. Then he said, he was so happy with his attitude that he said, let me give you $10 million to start an institute of renunciation. He said, no, I don't want any of that. I'm happy. So he was really happy. He did a Sashtang Namaskar, means, flat out. And everybody else had to do the same, including this officer who knew he was fake. So the president went and this guy went back and got a million rupees in crisp notes. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. He says, what? This was the deal, man. He says, no, thank you. And then this guy gets irritated. So he says, are you mad? This is what I had offered yesterday. So he says, I'm not mad, sir. You're blind. Did you not see what happened just now? For 10 minutes, I pretended I did not want anything, and the President of the United States offered me the world on a platter. What will I not get if I truly renounce? Now, this is the key that all of us must understand. The moment you understand that, your life changes. You see, this is the law. You chase after a desire runs away from you. Turn your back on it. Even pretend, even within yourself, say, I just don't want it. It comes to you. So this is it. When you relinquish all desires, the entire universe comes to you. But you must have that courage, the conviction to go through with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful thought to close with. Um, would you like to take us through the key takeaways for today's show?
Yeah, we began with a very important concept of kindness,
Yeah,
which is which is the starting point actually. You can't call yourself spiritual unless you have this
exactly.
quality. It's a prerequisite.
Yeah,
And then we went on to being judgmental
yeah,
and how it comes in our way actually of
yeah.
relationships, of understanding what beauty lies in other people. And then we move to the verses.
Yeah.
Verse 70 gives us the happiness formula, which is a very important concept that all of us need to think about and actually implement. Verse 71, where nothing makes a difference. So, like the actor on stage. And 72, think of Joe Biden and the sannyasi.
The pretend sannyasi. Yeah. So shall we close with the invocation today?
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that it's been an enriching experience for you. I think we've really enjoyed it today. We've there's a lot for us to take back and reflect on and improve on. So as always, please do take a moment to, if you've enjoyed it, share it with your family, your friends, people who you think might benefit from it or have an inclination for spirituality. And as always, have a great week ahead, and we'll see you soon. Bye.